Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome to this live little chat here. So, how to beat stress and stay on track. You know that stress is a killer. It affects every part of our life, and we need a little bit of stress because this motivates us and keeps us safe, and all kinds of reasons for the body to deal with a little bit of stress. But what the body struggles to deal with is prolonged stress. So now we seem to have like a moderate level of stress all the time, which can be really dangerous for the body. So I don't know who they are, but they claim that it takes just a few seconds to get really stressed, but can take 4 to 12 hours to come down from that stress. Isn't that crazy? So I know that the BBC did a documentary recently, and I think the candidates that they used actually were stressed for at least 4 to 6 hours after the initial stress. And they tested that, with the biochemistry feedback and all the machines that they had for the experiment. So it's still crazy though, even if it's 4 to 6 hours, you could be stressed again in that time, couldn't you? So I wanted to talk to you about how to deal with stress. Now, the big thing, I know there's lots of people watching all around the world, but the big thing is in the UK, we work like lunatics. And when you work 90% of the time and work is stressing you out, it can cause a lot of mayhem. And I know that one of the major stresses in life is work, or even not working. When people lose their routine, that this can be very stressful. So you have to analyse your own life, analyse your own body and how you're responding to it. Now, there's a few little nutritional and exercise tips that I can give you that are very, very simple, but deal with stress very well. So I just want to emphasise, and I've told this story a million times, but I'm going to tell it again. You get two guys going out to the pub, and one guy says to the other, "Do you know my wife has left the top of the toothpaste this morning? It really does my nut in." And the other guy goes, "Mine does that as well." And then they take off drinking. Well, the alcohol is killing a few brain cells, and the sugar is magnifying the stress. And so by the end of the night, they come home, they want a divorce, they've had enough, and all they've done is all she did was leave the top of the toothpaste. Yeah, so it magnifies the stress in the body. The emotional state you're already in when you eat sugar matters a great deal. So if you have a sugar in your tea and you're nice and calm, this probably won't affect you. If you have a glass of wine and you're nice and relaxed, it probably won't affect you. But if you're already angst, or there's already a stress in there, how many of you have done that? You've been anxious or stressed and you've taken off having a drink, and then there's been a fight and there's tears and there's tantrums, and that's because the sugar has magnified the stress in the body. And of course the alcohol kills the brain cells. They're replaced again when you eat, but you're a little bit stupid and a little bit stressed, and the sugar magnifies it and all hell breaks loose. So having a glass of wine at the end of a very stressful day probably isn't the way to go. And also, if you're in a really terrible meeting, I've had a couple of text messages this week about going into terrible meetings. If you have some sweeties, a Snickers, some biscuits, whatever it is that's in that meeting, while you're stressed, that meeting is not going to get better. So I know I've had a couple of ladies really doubting themselves. And I said, did the doubt and the stress come in after the biscuits or before the biscuits? And they both said to me, I think it was after. So there's that little bit of stress there, and the sugar's magnified it. So check what emotional state you're in. Exercise is your friend when it comes to stress. You've got to burn that stress hormone off. Now, I want to just, for a few moments, I want you to just think about the two major stress hormones that we have. The first one is adrenaline. So when adrenaline is in play, in action, The body will think you are running away from your stress. If we were cavemen and women, you'd be running away from your tiger. And so the body won't make you hungry. In fact, it'll want you to lean out. It'll start burning fat at a ferocious rate. It'll make you leaner, faster. It might make you a bit grumpy. It might make you meaner as well. So this is adrenaline. I've got a little thread there. Little thread. It'll make you thinner, yeah, and more anxious because it's wanting to get away from your stress. But the most common one that I come across these days, so people who have a high adrenaline will lose weight, but for those of us that are going towards our stress, cortisol will be the highest one. And so I've met a lot of ladies, perhaps nurses and doctors, that get a little bit anxious and stressed before they go on their shift. They're going towards their stress. And so the body will think you are running towards your tiger. And so it will want you to get bigger because you're going fighting, you're going towards the stress, you're tackling it. So it'll make you hungrier and it'll make you store fat, it'll lay down fat around the middle, it'll make you tired when you should be awake, it'll make you awake when you should be tired. And so these are the major differences between adrenaline and cortisol. And so then people go, I don't understand, I'm trying so hard, I'm not losing any weight. And that's because the cortisol thinks, the body thinks, well, they're moving towards their stress, so they need to get bigger to go fight in their tiger. So I want you to think about this when you think about the stress in your life. Are you moving away from it or are you moving towards it? If you're moving away from it, you'll be anxious, you'll be, moving in fast motion, you will be, a little bit manic, and you'll be burning through a lot of calories. So we're looking at meditations to calm you down. We're looking at deep breathing. We're looking at things to calm you down completely. Often people who have high adrenaline will go, I feel sick, I couldn't eat. I feel sick. Yeah. Those that have high cortisol, they can eat the house. They'll eat the house because they're getting ready to go fighting. They're getting bigger. They're in training. So are you moving towards it? The best thing actually for high stress in the cortisol side of things is vitamin C. Vitamin C fights cortisol in the system. So this will help calm things down. It'll improve your sleep and your energy. But these hormones were supposed to actually come in not all the time, just when you needed them. But now with our constant level of stress, people are becoming predominant in one or the other, and I think that's what modern life has done to us. That's what's changed us. So you can take vitamin C. Again, with the cortisol, we're looking at breathing, calming, pausing. Now I am a BWRT, brain working recursive therapist. I do know that there's a very natural thing that the brain does and that affects the body that can be used for stress. So when the body comes up and the brain comes up against something that's traumatic or stressful, it will pause. There's a natural wait state, and then it filters through all your experiences looking for anything familiar. But in that wait state, it's looking to receive more information before proceeding onwards, before activating any hormones, before programming the body to do what it thinks it should do. So in this natural state, if you come up against a stress, it is very good to just take a minute, yeah? Breathe, pause. Give the brain and the body time to register the severity of the stress. Yeah? So this is where people say, well, I eat massively if I've had road rage, in the car, and then I ate when the fella, shouted at me, and I ate when I lost my keys in the house, and all these things. None of these were life-threatening, but because there was no pause, the body has perceived it as a threat. If the body is perceiving things as a threat, you are in survival mode. There will be no burning of fat. There'll be none of that business, you know. So we need to really kind of settle things down and pause, wait, and use that. Exercise will really, really help burn off any excess hormones and stress, and it's a great stress reliever. You know, you feel great after Pilates, after Zumba, after the gym. You feel great after that. So I'm really wanting you to use exercise to your advantage. Now, note I say exercise. I'm not asking you to pummel the body. I'm asking you to exercise it. Why? Exercise is a great stress relief. I don't want you to stress the body with exercise. So think about what you're going to do. I know some people love to be beasted. They love it. They go, beast me, Anna, come on, really go for it. And if that's your make, wonderful. But if that isn't your make, beasting yourself when you're stressed won't be the way forward, you know. There are many things that we do that stress us out, and immediately when we get stressed, there will be that wait state, but also you'll notice you might hold your breath and then you shallow breathe when you're stressed. Then the body goes, not only is she stressed, not only is there a threat out there, she's bloody stopped breathing as well. So the body gets very stressed then. You can live without water for a bit, you can live without food for a bit, but you can only live without oxygen for a few minutes. And so if you're shallow breathing or you've held your breath, the body's going to get very upset very, very quickly. So breathe deeply. Now, if you notice, I haven't really mentioned too much about specific food and specific exercises, just because stress tends to affect the brain and the body in different ways. And so it just depends on your taste buds, really, whether you jump for the pizza or whether you jump for the chocolate. You know, it depends on your own taste buds. But you have to acknowledge that if you're in a stressed state, those foods are not going to make you feel better. But I won't lie to you, carrots won't help you feel better either. So I'm not saying that carrots and everything are going to make you feel amazing and chocolate isn't. What we want you to do is we need the pause. We need that pause. And I was speaking to one of the ladies on the phone last night, and she actually said, if she says to herself, oh, I'll have that chocolate later, I'll have pizza, I'll just leave it half an hour, I'll have that chocolate later, she often doesn't get around to it. And the reason for this is we often think our emotions are there all the time. And what really upsets me, I think probably, especially after doing the brain working recursive therapy course, is we understand that our emotions and our feelings are changing constantly. So when we think of people suffering very severely from depression and those terrible, you know, instances where people commit suicide, I know that if they just waited a few moments longer, the feeling would have passed. But as human beings, we act on our emotions almost immediately, and so we eat when we're stressed, or we get angry straight away, or we do something terrible. Yeah, so I really want that pause, because if you sit and you feel those emotions, even though you fear that it's going to be terrible, when you actually do it, they're never as bad as you actually think. And also, they dissipate in minutes. So the lady who goes, oh, I'll have that chocolate in a bit, I'll have it later, and then she finds that she doesn't end up having it, it's because the emotion, it's moved on, it's changed, it's evolved, and now she doesn't want it anymore. So I think the secret to staying on track and beating stress is time. So we want that wait state, we want that pause, we want the breathing, yeah? Let the body feel, change, evolve, and move on. Give the brain that time. Give it that time. Just making a mental note, vitamin C helps the cortisol very, very well. We want to be breathing. We do not want sugar when we're very stressed. Drinking alcohol, pop, eating sweeties or high carbs that turn to sugar in the bloodstream will only magnify the stress in the body already and make us feel 10 times worse, which is why often people do terrible things to themselves after having a drink and things like that. It just magnifies it. So I hope you are very, very well indeed. And I want you to practice this week, staying on track. I want you to use that natural weight state that the body does anyway, yeah? And pause and breathe and feel and evolve and move on. We can all do this. There's another little couple of tips that I'll leave you with. Especially when it comes to emotional eating or anything like that, you either need to change your emotion. Music is good. I'm into my Michael Jackson at the moment. Changing the action. Have you got a hand fixation or an oral fixation? This is where people take up knitting, or they're chewing gum, or if you pick up the phone to speak to someone, suddenly you don't want the chocolate. You are moving the mouth, or you're moving the hands, and it changes the feeling, and so you don't want the chocolate anymore. And the final thing is to change perspective or environment. You will find that you will eat in the same place at the same time. The body loves habit and familiar things. So move chair, move room, move different places. You will find the feeling will leave you again. We've had people taking a different route home. We've had people sitting in a different chair. And I did get a text message this week going, it can't be that easy, Anna. I've just sat in a different chair and I don't want the chocolate now. It really can't be that easy. But, you know, we're looking to change the perspective. So try those things. They really do help. But in the long term, I want you to have a life you love. I want you to have a life you like living and like being in. If you have prolonged stress and you're really struggling with this, it may be time to make some life changes. Get out of that job you hate. Tell the kids to help you more around the house. Tell your partner to give you love a little bit more often. You know, whatever you need to change it. The power is in your hands, and you want a life that you can live with to be joyful. I'll tell you a little bit of changes that I'm making myself. So I'm sat here in my office stroke stepdaughter Ellie's room. We've been renovating the house for some time, and I just, you know, when you just feel, oh my God, it's so good to declutter. It's so good. And we've got rid of like 10 years of rubbish, and I know I'm going to find more rubbish in the next few weeks. But I am renovating, Duffy and I are renovating the cellar and turning it into my office. So soon I will be coming to you via my new office in the cellar, which means I can get out of Ellie's room, and all my stuff will be out of Ellie's room. I'll be able to redecorate Ellie's room. She'll be over the moon. And things will change. It sounds silly. It's just a small change in the house, but it'll make such a big difference to how I feel, and I'll have a little environment I'll enjoy being in, to speak to you like this online and speak to my ladies on Skype and FaceTime and stuff. And then when I finish, I can close the door of the cellar and come away from it, and that small change will make such a big difference to my life. So even look around the environment that you're in. Can you make a little oasis in your own environment somewhere? Can you move and declutter some area of your house? Do you have a cellar that you could convert quite easily? It's not costing us very much money actually, because the cellar is quite dry, and we've got a dehumidifier down there. We're just going to paint it and seal it, and we're good to go really. So people often think that to do these things costs an amazing amount of money, but actually it's not as bad as you'd think. So have a look around your own environment, make it wonderful, and make life good for you. As I said before, the power is in your hands. So happy Thursday to you. I hope you're very well indeed, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.